Hollywood is a chessboard where pawns think they're playing until the kings wipe them off the board. I knew the rules. I played by them. But the moment I spoke up, someone decided my game was over. They watched. They waited. And when I saw that envelope on my doorstep, I knew this wasn't just a game. This was war. But let's start from the beginning. Los Angeles, the city of broken dreams, overpriced avocado toast, and teeth so white they could blind a man at sunrise. Hollywood wasn't just a place. It was a battlefield dressed up in neon lights and designer suits. The only rule, play the game or get played. And tonight, the air was thick with tension. Too many flashing cameras, too many fake smiles stretched over Botoxed cheeks, too many vultures in overpriced suits pretending to be artists. Every single person in that room was waiting for a moment, a slip-up, a headline that could keep their name relevant for another 24-hour news cycle. Then, right in the middle of the circus, stood Clint Eastwood, a legend. A relic from a time when Hollywood had no filters, no PR teams to sanitize every word, no fear of backlash. 94 years old and still standing like he owned the place, whiskey glass in one hand, the weight of a lifetime in the other. And when he spoke, he didn't whisper. He fired shots like it was a Western, and the whole room was his saloon. Hollywood is full of spineless, weak-minded fools, he muttered, swirling his drink like he had all the time in the world. No backbone, no honor, just fear of the mob and a hunger for cash. Silence. Not the polite kind either, the kind that crackled with disbelief. Someone let out a nervous chuckle. Another took a slow sip of champagne, suddenly realizing their career was in that glass. But most just stood frozen, wide-eyed, like deer caught in the headlights of a semi-truck, doing 90 on an empty freeway. Cameras were rolling. The internet was already catching fire. And Marcus Kane? He was right in the middle of it. At 52 years old, Marcus had spent his life fighting for every inch of ground he stood on in this industry. A black filmmaker in Hollywood? That wasn't a title, it was a survival test. He'd fought through backroom deals, ignored phone calls, and the ever-so-polite rejections disguised as, "We love your vision, but we're going in a different direction." Hollywood had a special kind of love for black creatives. They wanted them in 3 flavors. The suffering victim, whose pain could be monetized. The comic relief, there to deliver one-liners and keep things light. Or the martyr, conveniently dead so their story could fuel the real protagonist's emotional journey. Marcus had played the game. He'd smiled at the right people, taken the safe jobs, walked the tightrope between authenticity and what the industry was willing to accept. And now, right in front of him, Clint Eastwood was saying out loud what Hollywood whispered behind closed doors. Marcus could feel the rage clawing up his spine. The kind of rage that came from years of playing chess with people who thought he was just a pawn. He looked around, hundreds of people, all frozen, some shifting uncomfortably, some pretending they hadn't heard a thing. Not one person was stepping up. "Are you seriously going to just let this slide?" His voice cut through the silence like a blade. Eyes darted around. No one wanted to be the first to speak. Every single one of you is nodding, looking around, acting like this didn't just happen. This man just said out loud what this industry really thinks of us. A few gasps, a whisper or two. Someone turned on their phone camera, but still, silence. That's when Marcus realized this wasn't shock. This was fear. Fear of losing a paycheck. Fear of ending up on the wrong side of history. Fear of stepping out of line and being the next one the industry decided to forget. And that's when he knew. The game had just changed. He turned and walked out. His pulse was pounding in his ears. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from pure, unfiltered fury. This wasn't going to be another one of those moments that disappeared in the news cycle. Not this time. He pulled out his phone, opened Twitter. Fingers flying across the screen, he typed, "Hollywood's racism isn't hiding anymore. It's speaking loud and clear. Guess it's time we answer back. To send." His phone buzzed immediately. 1 notification, then 2, then 20. Then it was vibrating so fast, it felt like it might explode. Within seconds, the first sparks had turned into a wildfire. Marcus didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. He spent hours watching the wildfire he had started spread across the internet. His tweet wasn't just a trending topic. It was the topic. News outlets dissected it. Think pieces were already dropping. Comment sections were war zones. Some were calling him the voice of a generation. Others, a professional victim looking for attention. Two sides, no middle ground. He'd seen it happen before. People getting chewed up and spit out by the same machine they tried to expose. The only difference? This time, the machine had a name, and its name was Hollywood. Then, at 8:02 a.m. sharp, his phone rang. Agent Tyler Whitmore, a walking panic attack in an overpriced suit. Marcus sighed and picked up. "Marcus, what did you do?" The man wasn't even breathing between words. Not a good sign. "Good morning to you too, Tyler. Oh, don't start with me. You lit a 3-alarm fire in Hollywood. Do you have any idea what you just did?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Considering my phone hasn't stopped vibrating since 2 a.m.? Yeah, I think I have a clue." 10 million retweets, Marcus. A pause. "You're welcome?" "You're welcome! Are you out of your mind?" Tyler's voice cracked like a man on the verge of a breakdown. "Do you even understand whose toes you just stomped on?" Marcus smirked. "Not everyone's. I mean, Netflix and HBO are still on the table." Tyler inhaled so sharply, Marcus was convinced the man was about to pass out. "Are you kidding me? They're in full panic mode. You just declared war on the entire industry. You're either about to be turned into a hero or erased so hard, even the algorithm won't remember your name." That part hit different. Hollywood didn't cancel people. It rewrote them out of existence. Marcus exhaled, his fingers drumming against the desk. He knew Tyler was right. He'd been in this industry long enough to understand that speaking the truth wasn't a career move. It was a career-ending move. But this time, it felt different. The news cycle had latched onto the story like a starving dog on a stake. Clint Eastwood sparks Hollywood's biggest controversy. Every major outlet ran some version of it. Every news anchor had an opinion. Pundits debated whether Marcus was a brave truth-teller or a reckless agitator. By noon, studio executives were already leaking statements, trying to figure out which way the wind was blowing before picking a side. By 3 p.m., Hollywood's biggest names were getting dragged into it. Some issued cautious support. Others suddenly developed a deep appreciation for silence. Then, around 5 p.m., the shift happened. This wasn't just a controversy anymore. It was a problem. And Marcus, he was now the problem. At 5:37 p.m., his email pinged. Another message. Probably just another hate-filled rant from a faceless internet troll. Except this one was different. Subject, a friendly warning. "You think you're a hero? Look at the ones who tried to change the system before you. Look at how they ended up. Do you have a family? Kids? Walk away before their faces start showing up in the evening news." Marcus froze. This wasn't some random internet comment. This wasn't just hate. This was a warning. He slowly stood up, the hairs on the back of his neck standing like static electricity. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. His office window overlooked the street below. And parked right outside, a black car with tinted windows sitting there, engine running, watching. Marcus swallowed hard. The game had just changed, and this time, it wasn't just about Hollywood. It was about survival. Marcus wasn't new to Hollywood. He had seen careers vanish overnight, reputations dragged through the dirt, and people silenced in ways that didn't make the headlines. He knew how this game worked. But this wasn't just about bad press or industry politics. This was real. And when people start watching you from tinted windows, that's not a game, that's a warning. He didn't waste time. He grabbed his phone and dialed Eric Grayson, a journalist who had spent years peeling back the polished facade of Hollywood. Eric wasn't just a reporter. He was one of the last people in the industry who still had a spine. The line barely rang once before Eric picked up. "Tell me you're calling because you finally finished that sci-fi script." "I wish." "All right, that tone tells me this is serious. What's going on?" Marcus exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "I'm being threatened." A pause. "Threatened? By who?" "I don't know, but they're watching me." Eric's voice sharpened. Marcus, what exactly are we talking about here? Internet trolls? Angry studio execs? Or something worse? Marcus glanced out his window. The black car was still there, engine humming like it had all the time in the world. I think it's worse. Silence. Then, do you want me to look into this? Marcus shook his head, even though Eric couldn't see him. No, I don't want an investigation. Then what do you want? I want the world to know. Another pause, then a low chuckle. You realize what you're asking for, right? I do. All right then, let's blow this thing wide open. 3 hours later, the world knew everything. CNN's front page. Is Hollywood trying to silence director Marcus Kane? The Clint Eastwood scandal takes a dark turn. Other outlets followed. Social media exploded. Marcus scrolled through the headlines, watching as the story twisted into something bigger than him. Some called him brave, others called him reckless, and some were already calling him a liar. But the real response? That came later. It was past midnight when Marcus pulled into his driveway. The black car was gone. His muscles relaxed for the first time in hours. Maybe, just maybe, the attention had scared them off. But then he saw it, right there on his front porch. A single white envelope, neatly placed, like someone had taken their time. His stomach dropped. Marcus slowly walked up the steps, his heartbeat loud enough to hear. The envelope felt light, too light. He tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, 3 words. You made a mistake. Cold spread through his chest like a slow-moving storm. He looked up at the dark sky, the city lights flickering in the distance. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning. What would you do in Marcus's place? Would you stay quiet or fight back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever faced a situation like this? Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this story made you think. This story was created to shed light on real issues and spark conversation. The goal? To make the world a better place.